how could you betray me like this? After everything you just turned on me, I can't believe it. You betrayed me, Hawk! I trusted you, your straight thing! This pain is unbearable!
The bass was still vibrating through Club Noir's walls when the Mafia boss realized the woman he loved had played him. She was pregnant, and the DNA test couldn't tell which of two men was the father because her lover and her supposed baby daddy looked identical on paper. One was a Korean crime lord who controlled Seoul's underworld with surgical precision, the other was a diaspora mercenary who moved through 3 continents like a ghost, and she'd slept with both of them in the same month. The baby was born at 4:37 a.m. in Samsung Medical Center with 3 possible fathers in the waiting room: a Korean mafia princess, a rival gang leader, and the man who might actually be the biological father. And when that 7-pound infant opened her eyes, she didn't just inherit a criminal empire. She became the bridge that united Korean precision with diaspora power, the living proof that the future of organized crime looks like fusion, not purity, and the daughter who was supposed to destroy everything instead built a global network that spans from Itaewon to Lagos to Los Angeles. The bass hits different in Itaewon after midnight. It's not just sound, it's a physical thing crawling up from the subway grates, mixing with the smell of grilled pork belly and expensive cologne. The kind of bass that makes your chest vibrate in time with secrets you're not supposed to know. I'm standing outside Club Noir, where the neon bleeds purple and orange across wet pavement, watching a woman who's about to destroy everything. Her name is Ayanna. She's wearing a dress that costs more than most people's rent, her locks swept up in a style that somehow bridges Brooklyn and Gangnam. She's beautiful in that dangerous way, the kind of beautiful that starts wars and ends dynasties. And she's walking into the lion's den carrying a secret that weighs exactly 7 pounds, 3 ounces. See, there are unspoken rules in the space where the African diaspora meets the Korean underworld. Rules written in blood and soju and handshake deals that predate both our grandmothers. Rules about loyalty, about family, about what happens when you blur the lines between business and pleasure. Ayanna broke every single one of them. And tonight, the man who owns this club, who owns half of Seoul's underground economy if we're being honest, is going to find out exactly how badly. His name is Kang Min-jae. They call him the architect because he doesn't just run organizations, he builds them from foundation to penthouse. Methodical, precise, unforgiving. He's also the father of the child Ayanna is carrying. Probably. 6 months earlier, Ayanna walked into Seoul like she owned it. Not as a tourist, not as an English teacher doing the expat thing. As a businesswoman with connections that made the local brokers nervous and credentials that checked out too perfectly to be completely real. They expected someone they could control. Someone who'd play by their rules, smile pretty at the meetings, sign where they were told to sign. They got a warrior in Louboutins. She brokered her first deal in a noribang in Gangnam, singing Destiny's Child while negotiating a shipping contract that would have made seasoned traders sweat. By week 2, she had 3 legitimate businesses and 5 that existed in the profitable gray areas where Korean law gets flexible. By month 2, she had Min-jae's attention. "You're not what I expected," he told her at their first private meeting. His English was perfect, British accented from boarding school. His eyes were sharper. "People rarely are," she replied in Korean that was too fluent for someone who'd supposedly just arrived. "Gwenchoneo?" That's when he knew she was dangerous. That's also when he decided he wanted her anyway. But here's the question nobody was asking. Why Seoul? Ayanna had options. Lagos, London, New York, Atlanta. Cities where the diaspora had established power structures, where a woman with her skills could build an empire without navigating the specific complexities of Korean hierarchy. So why here? Why this city, this moment, this particular criminal ecosystem? The elders, the council of first-generation Korean-American gangsters who'd built the pipeline between Seoul and Los Angeles, they asked the same question. Quietly. Over expensive dinners in Koreatown restaurants that didn't have English menus. They didn't get answers they liked. "She's hiding something," Elder Kim said, pouring soju for Elder Park. "Women like that don't just appear. They're sent." "Or running," Elder Park countered. Question is, from what? Min-jae didn't care about their questions. He cared about the way Ayanna moved through his world like she'd been studying it her whole life. The way she understood the unspoken language of respect and challenge that governed every interaction. The way she could switch from street-smart Inglewood to corporate Seoul without missing a beat. He cared about the way she looked at him like she saw something the others missed. "You're not like the others," she told him 3 months in, after a deal that netted them both 7 figures. They were in his office, 30 floors above the city, watching Seoul glitter like broken glass. The other what? The other men who think power is just about violence and money. She turned to face him. You understand it's about architecture. About building something that outlasts you. And you? He asked. What are you building? She smiled. Didn't answer. That night, they crossed every professional line they'd carefully maintained. That night, the baby was conceived. Probably. If this moment pulled you in, stay with them. Subscribe and do not look away. Their story has already started. Stay with me. Like the video, subscribe for free and comment your thoughts below. Here's what Min-jae knew. Ayanna had a tattoo on her left hip. 3 symbols in Adinkra, West African visual language, that translated roughly to return to your roots to move forward. Here's what he didn't know. She had another tattoo. Hidden. One that would make him question everything. The pregnancy announcement came at the worst possible time. The Lee family, Min-jae's biggest rivals, old money Seoul crime with connections to the National Assembly, had proposed a merger. Not through violence, which would have been cleaner. Through marriage. Lee Sung-jin's daughter, Ji-woo. Princeton educated. Fluent in 5 languages. Born into the life, groomed for exactly this kind of strategic alliance. The meeting was set for Anson, in a restaurant that had been neutral territory for 3 generations. Elders from both families. Lawyers with briefcases full of contracts that would reshape Seoul's underground economy for the next decade. Min-jae was expected to say yes. Instead, 3 days before the meeting, Ayanna told him she was pregnant. It's yours, she said. They were in her apartment in Hanam-dong, the neighborhood where diplomats and celebrities hide in plain sight. I'm 12 weeks. He did the math instantly. 12 weeks ago, they'd been in Jeju, celebrating a successful expansion into the southern ports. Champagne and ocean views and the kind of reckless intimacy that happens when 2 people forget to maintain their armor. You're sure? I've taken 4 tests. All positive. That's not what I'm asking. She met his eyes. I know what you're asking. Yes. I'm sure it's yours. The thing about lies is they're easiest to believe when they contain just enough truth. Min-jae wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that the child growing inside this brilliant, dangerous woman was his. Wanted to believe in the possibility of something legitimate, a family, an heir, a future that wasn't just about expansion and consolidation. But he didn't build an empire by trusting easily. So he did what architects do. He investigated. Carefully. Quietly. What he found should have ended everything right there. Ayanna had been in Seoul for 6 months. But her passport showed entries and exits that didn't match her story. A week in Busan she'd never mentioned. 3 days in Incheon around the time of conception. Meetings with people who had no business connections to her legitimate enterprises. And then, the photograph. His security team found it buried in surveillance footage from a hotel in Gangnam. Ayanna, 8 weeks pregnant by her own timeline, having dinner with a man Min-jae recognized immediately. Marcus Cole. Former U.S. military. Current mercenary. Known associate of the West African cartels that had been trying to establish a foothold in Korean ports for years. The man who would be the perfect father for a child that could bridge 2 criminal empires. The man who could be the real father of Ayanna's baby. Min-jae didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead he played the game. Accepted her pregnancy announcement with apparent joy. Started making arrangements. The best doctors, a private suite at Samsung Medical Center, trust funds and security details. All while his people dug deeper. What they found was a masterpiece of deception. Ayanna wasn't just a businesswoman. She was a bridge. Sent by the diaspora networks, the global web of African and Caribbean organized crime that most people didn't even know existed, to establish a permanent presence in Seoul. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. It was strategy. If the child was Min-jae's, it would give her leverage in Korean circles, a permanent connection to one of Seoul's most powerful families. If the child was Marcus Cole's, it would give the diaspora networks a genetic foothold, a child who could claim both worlds, who could navigate both power structures. Either way, Ayanna won. The Anson meeting loomed 3 days away. Min-jae was supposed to broker peace with the Lee family, possibly announce an engagement to Ji-woo. Instead, he was carrying a secret that could start a war between 3 criminal empires. You're playing a dangerous game, Elder Kim told him over lunch in Insadong, in a restaurant where they swept for bugs twice daily. The Lee family expects an answer. The elders expect you to do what's best for the organization. And what's best? Min-jae asked. Not this. Not a child of uncertain paternity with a woman we can't fully vet. Not when the Lee alliance would secure our position for a generation. What if I want more than security? What if I want evolution? Elder Kim set down his chopsticks. Studied Min-jae with eyes that had seen 3 decades of this life. Evolution requires sacrifice, he said quietly. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? And for what? If you feel the chemistry building, stay close. Subscribe so you do not miss the next chapter. Comment what you think they are about to do. Stay with me. Like the video, subscribe for free and comment your thoughts below. The night before the Anson meeting, everything changed. Ayanna went into early labor. Not dangerously early, 36 weeks, viable but unexpected. Min-jae got the call at 2 a.m. from her apartment manager. She'd collapsed in her bathroom, water broken, contractions 5 minutes apart. He arrived at Samsung Medical Center to find chaos. Not medical chaos, the doctors had everything under control. Political chaos. Because somehow, impossibly, both the Lee family and Marcus Cole had gotten word that Ayanna was in labor. Jiwoo stood in the waiting room looking elegant and lethal, her father and 3 bodyguards flanking her. Congratulations, she said to Min-jae, her smile sharp enough to cut. On your potential fatherhood. Marcus Cole leaned against the wall near the elevators, all military precision and calculated calm. She called me, he said when Min-jae approached. Said I should be here. In case. In case of what? In case the baby looks like me instead of you. The baby was born at 4:37 a.m. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Healthy. Perfect. And absolutely, undeniably biracial. The nurse brought her out wrapped in pink, and every person in that waiting room did the same calculation. Korean and black. That much was obvious. But which black father? The baby had Ayanna's nose. She had Min-jae's mouth, or did she? She had dark eyes that could have come from either man. Skin tone that proved nothing except genetic lottery. She's beautiful, Jiwoo said, and there was something almost sad in her voice. What will you name her? Min-jae looked at the baby. Then at Ayanna, exhausted and triumphant in her hospital bed. Then at Marcus Cole, who was staring at the child with an expression Min-jae couldn't quite read. That's up to her mother, Min-jae said. Zuri, Ayanna said quietly. It means beautiful, in Swahili. And her middle name will be Min-hee. For her father's mother. How touching, Elder Kim said from the doorway. No one had heard him arrive. A child with 2 names. For a child with 2 possible fathers. This is going to be a problem. No, Min-jae said. It's going to be a solution. Everyone turned to stare at him. DNA test, Marcus Cole said. Settles it clean. Does it? Min-jae looked at him. You think the diaspora networks will accept that? You think they'll let go of their foothold in Seoul based on a test that could be faked, bought, manipulated? You think the Lee family will accept uncertainty? Jiwoo countered. You think the elders will let you build a legacy on maybe? I think, Min-jae said carefully, that we've all been playing the wrong game. Here's what Min-jae understood that the others didn't. The baby wasn't the problem. The baby was the solution. For 3 generations, he said, speaking to the room but looking at the child, our organizations have been fighting over the same territories, the same ports, the same politicians. Korean families fighting Korean families. Diaspora networks trying to break in. Everyone assuming the pie is fixed, that power is zero-sum. It is zero-sum, Elder Kim said. That's how this works. That's how it worked. Min-jae looked at him. But the world is changing. Seoul isn't just Seoul anymore. It's a global city. K-pop, K-drama, K-beauty, Korean culture is everywhere. And everywhere Korean culture goes, business follows. Legitimate and otherwise. What's your point? Jiwoo asked. My point is that this child, whether she's mine biologically or not, represents something none of us could build alone. She's Korean and black. She can move in both worlds. She's the future of what global organized crime actually looks like. Marcus Cole straightened. You're proposing an alliance. I'm proposing evolution. Min-jae turned to face them all. The Lee family gets their merger. But not through marriage to me. Through a 3-way partnership. Lee, Kang and Diaspora. We stop fighting over Seoul and start building a network that spans from Busan to Lagos to Los Angeles. That's insane, Elder Kim said. That's visionary, Ayanna corrected from her bed. She was smiling now and Min-jae realized she'd been waiting for this. Hoping for this. I didn't come to Seoul to steal a piece of your empire. I came to show you how to build a bigger one. The DNA test came back 3 weeks later. Min-jae was the biological father. 99.97% certainty. But by then it didn't matter. Because Ayanna had already brokered the deal of the century. The Lee family got 30% of the new organization. The Seoul Foundation, they called it, because crime empires need bland corporate names. They brought political connections, real estate, and 3 generations of Korean legitimacy. The Kang family, Min-jae's organization, got 40%. They brought the existing infrastructure, the port access, the distribution networks that moved everything from luxury goods to less legal commodities. The diaspora networks got 30%. They brought global reach, connections in 70 countries, and an understanding of markets that Koreans had barely begun to touch. And the baby, little Zuri Min-hee Kang, she became the symbolic head of the whole operation. Not in any legal sense, obviously. She was a baby. But in the way that mattered to people who understood symbolism and legacy. She was the future. The bridge. The proof that evolution was possible. You played us all, Min-jae told Ayanna 6 months later. They were in the penthouse he'd bought for them. Proper family residence, overlooking the Han River with a nursery that cost more than most houses. I played the game, she corrected, bouncing Zuri on her hip. Same as you. Same as all of them. I just played it better. The pregnancy was always real? The pregnancy was always real. The uncertainty about paternity was strategic ambiguity. Marcus is my cousin, by the way. Thought you should know that now. Min-jae laughed, actually laughed. Your cousin. 3rd cousin. But family is family in our world. He was my insurance policy. In case you turned out to be the kind of man who'd hurt a woman carrying another man's child. And if I was? Then Zuri would have had a different last name, and you'd have woken up one morning to find your empire redistributed among people who don't tolerate that kind of weakness. She said it casually, like discussing the weather. But Min-jae heard the steel underneath. I love you, he said, surprising himself. I know. She smiled. That's why this worked. You love me enough to evolve. To build something new instead of just protecting something old. That's rare in our world. This scene hit you, pause with me. Like the video if you felt it. Subscribe to keep following them. Comment whose heart is about to break. Stay with me. Like the video, subscribe for free, and comment your thoughts below. Let me tell you something about the streets, whether they're in Itaewon or Inglewood. The game isn't just about power. It's about knowing which rules to follow and which ones to break. It's about understanding that honor and hustle aren't opposites. They're partners. They dance together in the spaces where cultures collide and create something new. Ayanna understood that. She studied both worlds, learned to bow in Korean and dap in English. Learned that Yuri and we mean family in ways that transcend language. Learned that loyalty looks different depending on your grandmother's stories, but it means the same thing everywhere. Respect. Min-jae understood it too. He came up in a world where being Korean meant everything, where purity of bloodline determined your position. But he was smart enough to see that the future didn't care about purity. The future belonged to people who could navigate multiple worlds without losing themselves in any of them. People like their daughter. She'll speak Korean, English, and whatever African language you want to teach her, Min-jae said one evening watching Zuri sleep in her crib. Yoruba, Ayanna decided. My grandmother's tongue. So she knows where all her roots come from. And she'll learn the business? All of them. Legitimate and otherwise. She'll be able to walk into the Blue House or a trap house in Compton and command respect in both. That's a heavy burden for a child. That's a gift. Ayanna touched the baby's hand gently. She gets to be whole. Not Korean or black, but both. Not legitimate or street, but both. She gets to choose who she is instead of having the world choose for her. The Seoul Foundation changed everything. Within 2 years, they'd expanded into 12 countries. K-beauty products moving through diaspora networks into African markets. African minerals and resources moving through Korean ports into Asian markets. Technology, fashion, entertainment, all of it flowing through channels that the Seoul Foundation controlled. And nobody could touch them. Because they'd done what seemed impossible. They'd united 3 criminal ecosystems that had spent decades fighting each other. Korean traditionalists, American hustlers, and African networks all moving as one organism. It's beautiful, Elder Park admitted at a foundation meeting in year 3. I didn't think it would work. But it's beautiful. It works because it has to, Jiwoo said. She'd become the foundation's chief financial officer, turning dirty money clean with a precision that impressed even Min-jae. The world is global now. Crime that stays local dies. We adapted. We evolved, Marcus Cole corrected. He ran security for the entire operation now, using military precision to protect an empire that spanned continents. And we did it without losing what makes each piece unique. Min-jae looked around the table. Koreans, blacks, a few carefully selected others. All of them speaking a language that transcended their mother tongues, the language of profit and power and family. My daughter will inherit this, he said. When she's old enough. When she's ready. She'll take what we built and make it something we can't even imagine yet. She'll need protection, Elder Kim said. He'd come around slowly, but now he was one of Zuri's fiercest advocates. She'll need training, Ayanna added. Both kinds. Boardroom and battlefield. She'll need love, Min-jae said quietly. Everything else we can teach her. But she needs to know she's loved. Not as a symbol or a tool or a bridge. As herself. Everyone at the table nodded. Because that's the thing about family, real family, chosen or blood or both. It's not about what you can use each other for. It's about what you'd sacrifice for each other. There's a movement happening that most people don't see. It's happening in the clubs of Itaewon where African beats blend with Korean trap. In the fashion studios where designers from Lagos collaborate with Seoul's underground labels. In the restaurants where jollof rice sits next to kimchi and somehow it works perfectly. It's the global Afro-Korean movement. And it's not just about aesthetics. It's about power. Real power. The kind that comes from understanding that the future doesn't belong to people who stay in their lanes. It belongs to people who build highways between worlds that were never supposed to connect. Ayanna and Min-jae didn't just build a criminal empire. They built a template. By the time Zuri turned 5, she was already famous in circles that mattered. Not to the public. The foundation kept her face out of media, protected her identity with the same precision they used to move shipments across borders. But in the underground, the real power structures that ran beneath the surface of Seoul, Lagos, LA, everyone knew who she was. The princess of both worlds. Annyeonghaseyo halmiani, she'd say to Elder Kim's wife, bowing perfectly. What's good, Uncle Marcus, she'd say 5 minutes later, giving him a fist bump with practiced ease. She code-switched like breathing. Natural. Effortless. Because for her it wasn't switching. It was just existing. She's better at this than any of us, Jiwoo observed, watching Zuri navigate a foundation family gathering. The child moved from group to group, Korean elders who expected formal respect, diaspora soldiers who expected street authenticity, legitimate business partners who expected corporate polish. She gave them all exactly what they needed. That's because she doesn't see the boundaries, Ayanna said. To her it's all one family. One world. She doesn't understand why everyone else makes it so complicated. Maybe we're the ones who don't understand, Min-jae said quietly. The test came when Zuri was 7. The foundation had enemies. Power always creates opposition. There were Korean families who saw the organization as a betrayal of tradition. Diaspora networks who felt they'd been cut out of the deal. Authorities in 3 countries who'd been trying to build cases for years. Someone decided to send a message. They took Zuri. It happened outside her international school in Gangnam, the kind of place where diplomats' kids and chaebol's children studied behind walls and security cameras. Professional. Play. Over in 45 seconds. The kidnappers made one mistake. They assumed the foundation would fracture under pressure. That the Koreans would blame the diaspora networks, that old prejudices would resurface, that the alliance would shatter when it mattered most. They were wrong. Min-jae got the call at 3 p.m. By 3:15, every asset of the Seoul Foundation was mobilized. Korean intelligence networks that the Kang family had cultivated over decades. Diaspora street soldiers who could move through cities like ghosts. Jiwoo's financial tracking that could follow money anywhere in the world. Marcus Cole's military contacts who had resources most governments didn't acknowledge existed. All of it. Everything. For one 7-year-old girl. They want $10 million and our complete withdrawal from Busan ports, Elder Kim reported, reading the ransom demand. They'll get neither, Min-jae said. His voice was cold. Completely cold. The architect, calculating exactly how to dismantle the people who'd touched his daughter. They'll get bodies, Ayanna added. She was loading weapons with a precision that reminded everyone in the room that she'd grown up in places where survival meant being ready for war. They'll get an example that lasts generations. We need to be smart about this, Jiwoo cautioned. They're expecting rage. We give them strategy. We give them both, Marcus Cole said. We find her in the next 12 hours or Seoul bleeds. Nobody argued. They found Zuri in 9 hours. Warehouse in Incheon. 4 kidnappers. Low-level operators working for a Korean gang that thought they could exploit the foundation's multicultural structure. The rescue was surgical. Marcus Cole's team breached from 3 points simultaneously. Min-jae's people cut power and communications. Ayanna's diaspora network had already infiltrated the building through the sewers beneath it. By the time the kidnappers realized they were surrounded, it was already over. Zuri was sitting in a corner, hands zip-tied but calm. Completely calm. She'd been talking to her captors in Korean, asking them about their families, their reasons. 7 years old and already negotiating. "Appa," she called when Min-jae burst through the door. "They said they didn't want to hurt me. They just needed money for their grandmother's medical bills." Everyone in the rescue team froze. "Their grandmother is sick?" Ayanna asked, kneeling beside her daughter. "Very sick. Liver disease. They can't afford treatment." Zuri looked at the kidnappers. Young men, early 20s, terrified now that they saw what they'd actually triggered. "I told them we could help. The foundation helps family." Before we continue, quick question. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and subscribe for free because the next story might be even crazier than this one. Min-jae looked at his daughter. Then at the kidnappers. Then at Ayanna. "She's right," Ayanna said quietly. "We do help family." What happened next became legend in the Seoul underground. The kidnappers expected execution. Street justice. The kind of brutal response that maintains power through fear. Instead, Min-jae made them an offer. "You work for us now. You pay back what you owe, not in money but in loyalty. You help build what we're building. And your grandmother? She gets the best medical care in Seoul. Samsung Medical Center. Private suite. Whatever she needs." "Why?" one of them asked, voice shaking. Min-jae glanced at Zuri. "Because my daughter taught me something tonight. Power isn't just about punishment. It's about knowing when mercy is stronger than revenge." "That's some Confucian shit mixed with straight street wisdom," Marcus Cole muttered. Then louder, "I like it." The kidnappers became some of the Foundation's most loyal soldiers. Because they'd seen something rare in the criminal world. People who actually meant it when they talked about family. The incident changed everything. Not just for the Foundation but for the entire Korean underground. Word spread fast. The Seoul Foundation didn't just punish disloyalty. They rewarded loyalty. They invested in people. They actually lived the family rhetoric that most organizations only pretended to believe. Recruitment exploded. Not just Koreans or diaspora. Everyone. People who'd been excluded from traditional power structures because they didn't fit the ethnic or cultural mold. Mixed kids like Zuri. Immigrants. Outsiders. People who could move between worlds because they'd never fully belonged to just one. "We're not a gang anymore," Ji-woo observed at a strategy meeting. "We're a movement. We're a family business that happens to span 12 countries and multiple legal frameworks," Ayanna corrected with a smile. "We're the future," Min-jae said. "Whether the old powers like it or not." Elder Kim, who'd resisted every change for 3 years, finally smiled. "I was wrong about you. About all of this. My father built an empire. But you're building a dynasty." By the time Zuri turned 12, she was sitting in on Foundation meetings. Not as decoration. As a participant. She'd spent her childhood learning both worlds completely. Mornings with Korean tutors teaching her classical literature and Confucian philosophy. Afternoons with diaspora mentors teaching her street economics and West African history. Evenings with Min-jae and Ayanna, learning how to navigate the spaces between. "The Busan port expansion," she said during a quarterly review, her voice clear and confident. "We're approaching it wrong." 20 executives turned to stare at her. "Explain," Min-jae said, gesturing for her to continue. "We're treating it like a Korean problem with a Korean solution. But Busan connects to everywhere. We should be partnering with the Nigerian shipping families. They move more containers through West African ports than anyone. We teach them Korean systems, they teach us African networks. We both win." Silence. Then Ji-woo started laughing. "She's right. We've been so focused on controlling the port that we forgot about expanding what flows through it." "How old are you again?" Marcus Cole asked. "Old enough to see what you all keep missing," Zuri replied. Then, with perfect timing, "No disrespect, uncle." The room erupted in laughter. The Busan expansion became the Foundation's biggest success. Partnering with Nigerian families opened doors nobody had anticipated. African resources, Asian manufacturing, European markets. All connected through a network that the Seoul Foundation controlled not through force, but through being the only organization that could navigate all 3 worlds simultaneously. "You know what we've built?" Ayanna said one evening. She and Min-jae were watching Zuri practice her Korean calligraphy. Perfect brushstrokes that her teacher said showed unusual maturity. "An empire," Min-jae replied. "More than that. We've built proof." "Of what?" That the future isn't about purity. It's about fusion. Not just accepting diversity, weaponizing it. Making our differences into strengths instead of weaknesses. Min-jae watched his daughter work. Korean precision in her brushstrokes. African rhythm in the way she moved. American confidence in the way she held herself. She's going to be better than both of us, he said quietly. She already is, Ayanna replied. Because she doesn't have to choose. She gets to be everything. Let me tell you what the streets taught me, what Seoul taught me, what the global Afro-Korean movement understands that most people miss. Borders are illusions maintained by people afraid of evolution. Cultural purity is a myth sold by people who profit from division. The future, the real future, not the sanitized corporate version, belongs to people who can walk into a Korean bathhouse and an African barbershop and feel at home in both. Who can quote Confucius and Fela Kuti in the same breath. Who understand that honor and hustle speak the same language when you dig deep enough. Zuri represented that future. Not as a symbol but as a living, breathing reality. She was Korean enough to understand Jong, that untranslatable concept of deep emotional connection. Black enough to understand Ubuntu, that you are because we are. American enough to understand that individual excellence and collective strength aren't contradictions. She was the bridge that her parents built and the highway that her generation would expand. Do not walk away now. This is where everything changes. If you are still here, you are part of this story. Stay with me. Like the video, subscribe for free and comment your thoughts below. The final test came on Zuri's 16th birthday. The foundation threw a party that became legendary, Korean traditions mixed with African celebrations mixed with American excess. Hundreds of people from dozens of countries. A visual representation of everything they'd built. During the celebration, the elders called Zuri aside. We have a gift for you, Elder Kim said. The remaining first-generation leaders stood in a circle, Korean and diaspora, old powers who'd learned to share. They presented her with a jade pendant. Ancient Korean craftsmanship. But the design etched into it was a dinkra, specifically sankofa, the symbol for returning to your roots while moving forward. You are the future of what we built, Elder Park said in Korean. You are the proof that it works, Marcus Cole added in English. You are the bridge and the highway and the destination, Ayanna said in Yoruba. Zuri looked at the pendant. Then at her parents. Then at the room full of people who'd spent decades learning to work together. I accept this, she said. But not as an end. As a beginning. Because what you built was revolutionary. What my generation builds will be unstoppable. She switched languages seamlessly. We will build something bigger. Then, we go global for real. Not just ports and products. Culture. Music. Fashion. Food. Everything. We make the Seoul Foundation into something that shapes how the world sees Korean and African excellence. Not as separate. As inevitable partners. Min-jae felt something he rarely experienced, pure pride. How? Jiwoo asked. Zuri smiled, her father's calculated precision, her mother's dangerous confidence. By doing what you taught me. By being excellent at everything. By making them need us more than we need them. By building something so undeniable that the world has to recognize it. Like the video if the ending surprised you. Comment your reaction or your theory. Subscribe for free so you do not miss the next story. 5 years later, the Seoul Foundation launched its public face. SF Global Entertainment. A legitimate entertainment and media company that nobody realized was funded by one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Asia. They signed Korean artists and produced them with African and Caribbean collaborators. They created fashion lines that blended Seoul street style with Lagos luxury. They opened restaurants in 12 countries serving fusion cuisine that food critics couldn't categorize but couldn't stop eating. And at the center of it all was Zuri. 21 years old. Princeton educated like Jiwoo. Street smart like her mother. Strategic like her father. Fluent in 6 languages. Comfortable in any room from the Blue House to the Trap. She did an interview with Vogue, her first major media appearance. You represent something new, the interviewer said. This blend of Korean and African aesthetics. What do you call it? Zuri smiled. I call it the future. But some people are calling it the global Afro-Korean movement. The understanding that these cultures, Korean precision and African rhythm, Asian discipline and diaspora innovation, they're not opposites. They're partners. They always have been. We're just making it impossible to ignore. And your parents' business? The Seoul Foundation. They built bridges. My generation is building highways. Wider. Faster. Unstoppable. The interview went viral. Not just in Korea or African countries but everywhere. Because people were hungry for this narrative. Tired of the old stories about cultural purity and ethnic division. They wanted to see the fusion. The evolution. The proof that the future looked like Zuri. Min-jae and Ayanna watched the interview from their penthouse. "We did good," Ayanna said. "We did better than good. We changed the game. She's changing it more. Making it bigger than we ever imagined." Min-jae pulled his wife closer. 21 years since that night in Itaewon. 21 years since a woman in an expensive dress had walked into his club carrying a secret that would reshape everything. "You knew," he said. "From the beginning. You knew what this could become. I knew what it needed to become. Whether it actually did, that was up to us. Up to her. No regrets. About cheating? About the uncertainty? About dragging you into the most complicated situation of your life? About any of it?" Ayanna looked at him. "I didn't cheat. You know that now. The DNA test proved it. But I let you think I might have. Because I needed you to choose. Choose me, choose us, choose evolution over tradition. Choose the future over the past. And if I hadn't? Then Marcus would have raised her. The diaspora would have found another way in. The foundation wouldn't exist. But she'd still be extraordinary. Because that's who she is." Min-jae kissed his wife. 21 years and she could still surprise him. "I'm glad I chose right. You chose evolution. That's always right." On the streets of Itaewon, in the clubs where Afrobeat mixes with K-hip-hop, in the fashion studios and restaurants and boardrooms where cultures collide and create something new, the movement continues. Not because of one family. Because of what they proved was possible. That you can honor your roots while reaching for the stars. That fusion isn't weakness, it's strength compounded. That the daughter who was supposed to divide two worlds instead united three. And that the future, the real future, not the one politicians sell or traditionalists fear, it belongs to people brave enough to build highways where others only saw borders. Zuri walks those highways now. Building. Expanding. Creating. The princess of both worlds. The proof of concept. The future made flesh. And if you understand what that means, if you see yourself in her story, in her parents' gamble, in the movement they started, then you're already part of it. Welcome to the global Afro-Korean revolution. We've been waiting for you. If this story made you feel seen, if you recognize yourself in this movement, subscribe because we're just getting started. Comment where in the world you're watching from, Seoul, Lagos, LA, London, wherever you are on this highway. Like if you believe the future looks like fusion, not division. The global Afro-Korean revolution is real and you're part of it now. New stories every week. Don't miss what comes next.